All right, check this out. All right, what's up? Welcome back. 15 minutes. Been recording these every night. Tonight I scheduled it on the live stream for 40 minutes ago. I usually I don't know. I didn't think I was ready, but I'm pretty much ready to talk about this topic. It's pretty easy. 15 minutes on concerts nowadays. And I'm able to talk on this. I have my tea again here because I've gone to 3 concerts over the past year and a half. But let me get the timer going. I'm going to start that up right now. Here we go. So I been hadn't been to a concert. I guess we can go back as far 5 years ago. I took a drive down to Nashville, and a lot of these stories that I'm going to tell in this 15 minutes are written up in my blog. So if you look in the description, you'll see a link to my website, and then which is just myname.com, and then you'll see. I think blog is the first link you click. I should probably like reorganize my website a little bit. I'll get around to that. For some reason, it's like it's some sort of thing. Like when I know I need to talk on microphone, like my lips start getting really dry, my mouth gets dry. It doesn't happen every time, but it seems to happen kind of often. It's like some sort of like mental reaction because normally I don't think my mouth would get quite as dry with this amount of talking. Although maybe that's not true, but I have my tea here to try to counteract this anyway. And yeah, so I drove all the way to Nashville, and if you've never been there, it's kind of interesting as a musician myself because when you go to Nashville, there's one street called Broadway where the whole street is just filled with bars, and so there's probably like 20 bars, I guess. And every single bar, there's a live band playing, usually in the front by the window. And every single band playing is either bluegrass, acoustic, um, folk music, whatever that trifecta is like Tex-Mex bluegrass, blues and bluegrass, CBGBs, country blues and bluesgrass. There you go. So that's all it is. There's no other genre. There was one guy I saw who was doing like he had an acoustic guitar and the bar he was at was pretty cool actually because it was like 2 floors and he was like in the center. So if you're on the second floor like I was, like a bunch of us were like just watching him from above. Another thing that's cool about Nashville is it's like the bridal. What's the female bachelor party? The bridal party, capital of the U.S. So it's all just brides and their bridesmaids, and they have these stupid like ta- you like pedal on a taxi and get drunk at the same time. I don't know what it is. You pedal on a taxi while you drink out of a um like big those big things you get from 7-Eleven where it's like a beer bong, but it's like a huge hourglass, but it's skinny, like beaker. I sometimes wonder next time someone asks me like, "Hey Mike, like what's your type?" I'm going to say beaker. But anyway, we're going to talk about live concerts. So I was in Nashville and I saw live music there, which actually kind of ties into this whole story because there's certain points I want to make about concerts. But anyway, I was actually in Nashville during when the pandemic began, and I was in a bar watching live music, and the guy on stage was like, "It ain't here yet. It hasn't been. There's like 0 cases in Nashville." And we all, They kept playing and everything. So when I was in Nashville and I saw the music, I didn't have any complaints with the audio sound, and I'm gonna get into some of those. But I guess like however many years later, in 20, what was it, like last year, I decided to go to a concert randomly in downtown Albany, and I wrote about this in my blog. But I gotta get a soundboard too. I was looking at different like soundboards I could use to playback sounds. Let me look at this here. Hold on. Oh yeah. I don't want. Is this gonna be full volume or what? Let's see. Yeah, I mean I have that sound. But I went to this concert, Origami Angel, downtown Albany. It's pretty. I guess you could use the word organic experience in that Um, I heard the band on the radio, local college radio, and then I decided to like buy tickets to the show. And first impression when I walked in, and I wrote about this in the blog, is like, I think I'm too old to be here because I'm 30. At the time, it would have been 36. And I can get into more general thoughts, but being 36, I mean, it depends on what concert you go to, obviously. So if you're gonna go see an act from the 60s or 70s, it's gonna be all older people, you would think. What this band, they themselves, I think, there's people online speculating how old they were, and I think the general consensus they were like 25 at the time. So most of the people at the concert, when I looked around, there's like 100 people there, let's say, before the openers even started, and I was like, wow, everyone here is like 20. So it definitely like felt kind of awkward, but that's one point I can make. But the biggest complaint I have with concert nowadays, and I'll get to the main point. How much time do I have left? I got 8 minutes or 9 minutes. The biggest complaint is the sound. So let me just take a sip of this tea. I guess if you're wondering what type of tea I'm drinking, I'm having matcha tea I bought off Amazon, and I squirt some honey in there too. And the honey is in like a little plastic bear, raw honey with an orange label on it. I like to give a little visual image of what, because this is audio only. I'm sitting in a desk chair, got a computer in front of me. There's a little mixer to my left. The cup of tea is in a paper cup that I reused from when I got it at the gas station. Various different things on my desk. I ran out of tissues, so I have like an industrial size toilet paper storage. So I just use the toilet paper to like wipe my mouth. Yeah. There's like a guitar in the corner, which I'm thinking about fixing the input jack. Yeah. But anyway, everyone there was younger, but the sound at the concert. And the biggest thing is that there must be some sort of like trend going on. And I don't even enjoy live music really. From the ages of 16 through like, I don't even know, 22. So 6 years gap. I was pretty into live music and I performed quite a bit. And like once you flip sides to being the performer versus the audience, it does kind of skew your enthusiasm for just like staying in the audience a little bit. And that's part of the reason why I go to the concerts, or it's part of what I do when I go there. I start to evaluate like what the performer's doing, I guess with like a little bit of extra knowledge of what I think is going on. You can like pick up on certain things. Like I saw a concert years ago where it was a 3-piece, and like I knew all the band's songs pretty well, and I could see in the middle of the show like the bass player forgot like maybe like 1/5 of one song out of 20 they played, and the guitarist was pretty pissed off at him. And I was uh, very much so in the front, so I could see this all go down. So like things like that I'm looking at. Well, yeah, the sound at the 3 different shows. So I saw the Origami Angel, I saw Armor for Sleep, and I saw Fall of Troy. all emo bands. And I also saw every single opener as well, which is another thing. I don't drink or smoke, so and a lot of these shows are no re-entry. So it's like I don't want to show up late and then it's like miss some of the show. So I show up pretty much on time and I just watch all the openers, which is kind of like I should stop doing that because most of the time I'm not into the openers. Like the openers are just not good. But in terms of the sound on my screen, looking at my computer screen, the sound of the shows is way too bass heavy. That's the problem. And what it stems from is like I don't know exactly the genesis of like why front of house sound engineers want to just pile drive the audience with bass frequencies, but it does bring me back to when I first got a stereo when I think I was in 7th grade, and for my birthday my parents bought me a stereo and a CD player, and I got a Black Sabbath Paranoid CD, or like it was my parents already had it. So I put it on as like the first music through this new stereo. And what I would do is I would crank the bass knob up to like I want to say maybe like 5 p.m. and I would leave the treble at midnight or at 12. And for some reason to my like 13-year-old through maybe even like 16, 17, 18-year-old brain, I thought that sounded good. But obviously now I would, normally have like the treble more so at like, let's say 4 o'clock, and the bass knob would be at like 1 p.m. And that would sound better to me for rock music, which is pretty much mostly what I listen to for the most part. But yeah, when you go to these shows, it's just like the bass knob is just cranked to 10. So you can't hear anything else. And that's the problem. Like in the context of listening to your stereo at home, you can do that and it'll sound okay. But the problem is when you go to a venue, the venues invest in PA systems that aren't always an exact match to the dimensions of the ballroom or whatever. So, and I saw another show at it was 3 different venues that I went to. And the second show I went to, I think the PA was like way too powerful, even though the place was huge itself, but the PA was still way too powerful and they had it like cranked all the way up. So it just kind of ruined the concert in a way. And there's other things I can talk about too. So I'm at 3 minutes left. So yeah, I'm bitching about the sound. I am able to stand up, although the floors are like rock hard. It's just like concrete, so you do get a little tired standing for whatever 6 hours straight, and then you got to stand and also like be aware of all the different people filing in around you and whatnot. But what is the other thing I wanted to complain about? All right, the sound. Oh, this is a main thing. I go to see a band, and I saw 3. I mean, I guess I can't complain about any of the headliners per se. But yeah, the bass frequencies, what happens is the bass frequencies drown out the other frequencies, so you can't actually even hear like the guitar at all, which is it's like a higher end of the spectrum, I guess. I'm not an expert on frequencies, but I just know the basics. But yeah, the thing that also is annoying is when you go see a group and you can't tell if they're playing to a backing track or not, or you notice they are playing to a backing track. Then I start feeling ripped off. Or if you see like the main guitarist and like you hear other guitars being piped in through the back, I'm like, I don't know about all that. Like, why? How come this guy hasn't hit like a spare, palm muted, it's like strum on his guitar? Like, I can't even really hear it. Like, is it really him playing? It's like a little bit all too perfect and polished and whatnot. Then I start being like, this is like a waste of money, because I want to just see like, let's just use the example of the 3-piece. Like bass, guitar, and drums, I want to see that they're playing and like there's like some level of improv going on. And also, if you're just playing your CD cuts back exactly, like that's kind of whack too. I want to like part of the live performance is to like remix to some extent what's being played back. maybe not in any crazy way. Like you don't have to like play the song in a different key or anything, but like you can add little parts that engage the audience with suspense or people who are familiar with your music down to like every last note. That's the fun of putting together a live show because you can really start to like take that listener and like mess with their head being like they're expecting this to happen at this exact moment. Well, I'm going to add in, one measure of suspense or one measure of something different just so that to throw them off a little bit so they can smile at it. So I didn't really see a ton of that at any of the shows. Everything's pretty buttoned up. Seems like in live music, it's all one big corporate arm involved as well. So then you start looking at that, like how is this all being funded through some sort of like corporate interest, and that's a whole nother conversation. But it looks like the 15 minutes is about up. And yeah, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to, and we can listen to this timer go off. What I'm gonna do is, there's the 15 minutes. I think I'm gonna start doing like more than or 15 minutes more on a certain topic. So if you want me to talk about a specific topic for a longer amount of time and go more in depth, hit the like button or get a comment. If it gets to, I don't know, 50 likes, then I'll do a more 15 minutes. And if it gets to 2 comments asking for it, then I'll do it. But because some of my earlier streams got cut off, so you didn't even hear the end of it. But whatever. I will see you next time.